What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 264 of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. Today's episode, number 264 of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast, is entitled, Did You Really Make Amends? And this is the first of two Wacky Wednesday episodes for today as we continue to go through the From Ashes to Destiny curriculum. Again, we're in phase 3, which deals with moral regeneration and positive character development. And we're in chapter 9, which is step 9 of the 12 steps, which is entitled, Make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And those of you who listen regularly remember from step 8 and that podcast, it was getting ready to make amends and being willing to make amends. So now this chapter deals with making amends, and therefore the title of the episode is, Did You Really Make Amends? Okay? We're going to look at the first story from this chapter. And before we do that, I'd like to just define or settle on a definition for making amends. Making amends, if you go into the dictionaries online, says to do something to correct a mistake that one has made or a bad situation that one has caused. And as I work with people, I tell them, really, we can all say, I'm sorry for the things we did, but making amends really is to attempt to apologize for the emotional pain, the feelings that you inflicted on others as part of the harm in your behavior. And therefore, in this chapter, and also the next one, I use the feelings wheel or the emotion wheels a lot to help people come up with ideas of emotions to list. Okay, let's get into the story. And this story is the story of Nicky and her mom Daisy, but it really covers 4 generations of women, as it covers Nicky's grandmother, her mother, herself, and Nicky's own daughter. Here goes. Nicky would walk miles and miles on Kensington Avenue every day, waiting for a date to pull over and offer her a ride. I've been arrested too many times for solicitation, she said. All the cops know me because of my long strawberry blonde hair. And they don't hassle me as long as I don't stand still. Nicky had a sweet tooth for Wendy's Frosties and always said yes when I offered to buy her one. After about our 6th or 7th time to Wendy's, Nicky said, Would you take me home to see my daughter? That night, I called Nicky's grandmother and arranged a visit for the next day. As Nicky was asking her grandmom for $20, I was talking to her mom, Daisy, who shared, I was addicted to cocaine for a few years and got arrested for embezzling from the company where I was the accountant. I spent my time in jail and made restitution to the company. And it breaks my heart to see Nicky making the same mistakes I made. Nicky had everything going for her, Daisy continued. She was the first girl to get a full scholarship to airplane mechanic school and was even featured on the local news. But she had always been mixed up with the wrong crowd. After a deep breath, Daisy said, I guess that's my fault. I was either getting high, trying to forget Nicky's dad's suicide, in jail, or dating around when she needed me most. Another pause and a sigh, and Daisy said, But now I'm happily married. I have a good job. I found the Lord, and I pray every day for Jesus to save Nicky from her destructive lifestyle. It took several more years, but Daisy saw the answer to her prayers as Nicky was baptized in her mom's church on a sunny Sunday morning. That wasn't the end of Nicky's battle to take back the ground she had surrendered to the enemy, but it was a great start. Okay, awesome story there of what making amends is all about, or the introduction to making amends. So let's go through some questions from that story. Number one, Nicky talked as we went to Wendy's for a Frosty. And for those of you who were introduced to the concept of normalcy, this was Nicky's normalcy, was getting a Frosty. And even though she walked up and down Kensington Avenue every day looking for dates, she would not walk a few blocks out of her way on Allegheny Avenue to go for a Frosty on her own. But she loved them whenever I took her there. Nicky also had to deal with the indifference of police after multiple arrests from solicitation. And the deal was, as long as she didn't stand still, they wouldn't arrest her. So I guess as we look at this beginning aspect of Nicky's lifestyle, I'd like to ask you to revisit again, what is your normalcy that you've hopefully made the decision to try to add into your life? What indifference do you face from family or police or people who've been trying to help you? And what's the deal with just don't stand still? Do you think it was simply that if Nicky stood still, then people would complain, shop owners would complain, and other people would complain to the police, and they'd have to arrest her again? Okay? Number two, Nicky wanted to see her daughter. Why do you think Nicky's grandmother was raising her daughter and not Nicky's mom, Daisy? Number three, Daisy had been a cocaine addict, embezzled, and spent time in jail. She made restitution to her previous company, she said, for her embezzlement. So I want to ask you, what's the difference between amends and restitution? Is there any restitution that you think you should make, and how would you go about making restitution? And I'll give some examples. How do you make restitution to the places you've shoplifted? How do you make restitution to the homes you've burglarized or did home invasions in? How do you make restitution to the people you've mugged on the streets? Some restitutions are impossible, but are there any that you should be making? Number four, Daisy's heart broke to see her daughter make the same mistakes she made. And that's the way Daisy phrased it. Why do you believe Daisy blamed it on Nicky being with the wrong crowd? What do you think was going on in Daisy's mind there as a mom, where she said, well, Nicky's always chosen the wrong crowd, and I think that's the problem that led her into her mistakes, her addiction, her prostitution. Number five, afterwards, Daisy took some of the blame because she admitted that she was getting high. She was trying to forget Nicky's dad's suicide. She spent time in jail. Or after she got out of jail, she was dating around with other men. And she wasn't there for Nicky when she was looking for a mom, so to speak. She was being raised by her grandma. I want to ask you, who wasn't there for you when you needed them most? And what were they doing instead of being there for you? And how did that make you feel, those other things that were more important to them than you, that you realized that you may have been their son or daughter, but you were not their choice? Okay. Number six, Daisy said now she's praying every day for Jesus to set Nicky free. Do you think Daisy made amends with her daughter, Nicky? If you were Daisy, what would the amends sound like? And I want to encourage you to role play this or write it down and then role play it with someone. What do you think those amends would sound like between mom and daughter when daughter, as Daisy said, is making the same mistakes? And number 7, do amends always include restitution, reconciliation, and restoration of relationship? Or are they just amends for the pain that we caused in harming other people? What should the true motive of making amends be? Well, I think it should be bringing healing to the people that we have harmed. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you were saying, that's me, and you're at that point of going through amends and would like to speak to someone, I want to encourage you to talk to a sponsor, a friend, a coach, join a group. You can send me a message on the link in this podcast or by email at davidfroma2d@gmail.com, or go to my website, www.froma2d.org, and click on the contact page. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave your comments by clicking on the link they provide in that platform. Keep listening to future podcast episodes, and as always, stay safe and stay resilient.